Let's talk about a more practical issue, the lingering mystery. I really puzzled by it. Why is it that they all seem to have trouble recognizing Jesus after his resurrection? Why wasn't he recognized? We see Mary in the garden, thinking he's the gardener. We see on the Emmaus Road, they go 7 miles, they don't recognize him for some reason. Then in the upper room, they're terrified. That's understandable, but what's bothering them? Why are they, you can understand why they're surprised. Why are they frightened? And by the Sea of Galilee, that strange breakfast that we encountered. There on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus said, I'm come and dine. None of the disciples dared ask him, who art thou? Knowing it was the Lord. Something's going on. Every one of these cases, there seems to be the hint that there's something going on here. Well, if prophecy is true, we have the Old Testament description. Psalm 22 describes the crucifixion. Isaiah 53 describes the crucifixion. Isaiah 52:14, just before Isaiah 53, there is an issue that comes up. Just before 53 starts, says, many were astonished that his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. What that should read in proper translation, so marred from the form of man was his aspect, that his appearance was not that of a son of a man. And so if we take prophecies, there may be details recorded in the Old Testament that aren't recorded in the New. So marred from the form of man was aspect that his appearance was not. He was so tortured, he no longer looked human. That's really what the prophet is predicting. Well, if we take prophecy seriously, are there other details in the Old Testament that are not noted in the New Testament? There's one that I want to take a look at, and that's Isaiah 50, verse 6. In Isaiah 50, it says, I give my back to the smiters, and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair. I hid not my face from shame and spitting. If this is a prophecy of Christ, and if it's fulfilled, that implies to me that among other things, his tormentors, apparently, ripped off his beard. Now we know that in his resurrection body, he still bears his scars. He has the nail prints in his wrists, right? It's possible that his confidants, the women and the disciples were used to seeing a fully bearded prophet. And now they're confronted with a stranger that has scar tissue on his face where a beard used to be. Is that possible? Zechariah 12:10 in the Hebrew says, and they shall look upon me whom they've pierced. And there's an untranslated pair of letters between the me and the whom, the aleph and the tau, which in the Greek would be the alpha and the omega. They shall look upon me, the aleph and the tau, whom they've pierced. But Revelation 5:6 gives another clue that's disturbing. In Revelation, we see John is treated to a vision of the throne of God. He says, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood the Lamb as it had been slain. Apparently, Jesus will appear there in his resurrection body. And this reminds me of a strange story. There was a woman that had a very disfigured face and was raising a little girl. When the little girl was very small and going to school, the kids would make fun of her because of her disfigured mother. She often came home from school crying because the kids were teasing her about that. When the little girl became old enough, the mother explained to the little girl that when she was a baby, there was a dreadful fire in the apartment. She was able to save the little girl, but sustained very serious burns in doing so. And from that day on, the little girl was no longer embarrassed by her mother. In fact, every time she looked at her face, she knew how much she was loved. And I ponder, is it possible that Jesus today still bears the nail prints in his wrists? Is it possible that he also still bears the scars of that abuse? Because the scars of his humiliation would be also the marks of his glory on our behalf. And just maybe every time we look into his face, we'll realize how much we loved.